Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides, Can-Am Missing Project. That's executive producer Huck Alberry. And she was just running around here like a nutcase. And why? Because it was raining outside. And you can't tell, but she's pretty wet right now. And it's cool. And we actually are having some flooding up here in northwest Montana right now. But when she's running around in the rain, and then she comes in, she has all this energy, and she just, it's like a wild dog. Yeah, 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 you're a good girl. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yeah. Scratch me, Dad, scratch me. Yeah, right there. Yeah, it's a good girl. That's a good girl. Yeah, you're a good puppy. Oh, that's a big yawn, yeah. All right, let's get on with the show here. My latest movie, Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State. You can watch it on Amazon right now. Please go over there and watch it. Be greatly appreciated. And every once in a while, somebody who I don't usually know will write me a letter. And you know, you don't get letters typed very often in the mail. This person is obviously, I don't know if it was typed, it could have been on a computer and printed, it's hard to tell, but every once in a while it's nice to get something polite in the mail that talks about something you did. And I'm going to read this to you because it kind of touched me. Hey Dave, we actually met a few years ago, March 23, in Ocala, Florida at the Bigfoot Conference. I'm actually going to be in Ocala in June of this year at the same conference. It's been a couple years since I've been there. It's put on by Gather Up Events. If you go to Gather Up, like GATHERUP events, same organization that puts on the Missing 411 cruise in September to Alaska. Okay, anyhow. There, I, along with a packed auditorium, heard your riveting talk. The finale of a weekend full of memorable events. Perhaps even more than that, I vicariously weathered with you Professor Jeff Meldrum's, may he rest in peace, heated verbal attacks on you and your research in the culminating roundtable discussion. Here's what happened. Jeff and I had known each other for way over 10 years. We lived on opposite sides of the world of Bigfoot. He believed it was an ape, a gorilla, a Gigantopithecus. And I said that was impossible. And I came with facts. And he did not like that. I was never rude. Never. I respected him too much. He had done way too much for the Bigfoot world than anyone else. Let me go on. I've said to you in a previous letter, and I'll say it again now, that I felt validated by your calm presence throughout that moment. Also by the grace and respect you extended to your fellow speakers, as well as a few individuals in the audience, even as they were giving you the opposite. Thank you, Dave, for standing up for me and all of us who follow the Bigfoot research. That day in Ocala, as I think you have so many times, you took the truth on your back and took the heat of the dissent that seems to always go along with work in the Bigfoot world. Let me explain something. If you haven't been around the Bigfoot world much, there's a lot of people that have done no research. They call themselves researchers. They're really just hobbyists that spend a weekend here or there researching or going out in the field and having fun, really, not doing any technical research. And then they get brought in to speak because there's a huge lack of technical researchers in the Bigfoot world. Back to the letter. And you did it again yesterday on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think Mr. Rogan's platform is one of the most influential in the world, and I try to check in on it regularly to get a clue about the zeitgeist of the social media space. Seeing you in my YouTube feed your clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, I immediately went to Spotify and watched the entire episode. Wow. I thought I'd never see another command performance like the one you gave in Ocala. But I think right now that surpassed even that on the Joe Rogan show. Thank you, Dave, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Often I have a hard time tolerating Joe these days. I cringe as he laughs over his guests or interrupts them with his light-hearted mockery. It infuriates me. And his smug confidence that whatever blurb that Jamie Googles up on the web is the be-all and end-all on the knowledge of any subject. Sorry, that just makes me want to punch him in the nose. But again, you weathered all those antics and followed the conversation with perfect proportion of gravitas and down-to-earthness. Bravo, Dave. Mr. Rogan got his very own Bigfoot tutorial, 90% of which he had never heard before, I'll bet. Thank you again. Were I to imagine a scenario where I could choose the best hitter from the Bigfoot world to go up to the plate against the cockiest pitcher in the media, for but one at bat, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, for all the marbles, I would choose you, Dave. To face Rogan. Your effort yesterday was exactly that epic at bat, and you delivered. Home run and a crisp, classy trot around the bases that would make Hank Aaron proud. I hope you get round 2 on JRE. Sincerely, signed his name. Wow. Thank you for that letter. I said this before. I don't really think there are any experts in the Bigfoot world, Sasquatch world. I'm definitely not one. But what I've tried to do is listen to everybody and take the best that everyone has and put that together in a cogent, understandable presentation. And unfortunately, one side of that world doesn't listen to the other side at all. See, I listen to them. And I actually use what they say against them in my presentations. And that's why I can get people to buy into what I'm saying. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm far from it. But I'll outwork anybody. I'll spend 16 hours a day listening, reading, accumulating data on things that are important in my world. I'll be in Ocala, and Jeff Meldrum's best friend, his cohort in his research, will be there too. And that's okay. I'll continually and always be polite to these people. And Jeff and I did a few cruises together. Would continually be the ones that the audience would want to see go head to head, neck and neck. And Jeff sometimes got pretty upset at me, and that's okay. But I'll always hold deep admiration for him doing what nobody else could do, and that is bring the masses to the topic because of his educational background. Nobody else did that. Now, Jeff didn't have a PhD in Bigfoot or Sasquatch. None exist. But he did have a PhD, and he taught at a big university, and that's got to be commended. And he took a lot of heat at Idaho State. In fact, they tried to take away his tenure at one point, but he battled back and won. The last cruise I took was the Caribbean cruise. Jeff was supposed to be on that. Passed away before that. His wife went on the cruise. I'd always been super nice to her, talked to her a lot. On that last cruise, there was one event. It was a side trip somewhere. Everyone had jumped in, including me, with snorkeling gear, snorkeled around. As I'm out in the water, I noticed that his wife was just sitting on the boat alone. I came in, sat down on the boat with her, and she was just so nice. So nice. And I think what I did is I listened a lot. I learned a lot about what happened to Jeff and how he died, why he died. I was also on a cruise with him when the Coast Guard had to come out in the middle of the cruise and take him off because he had an emergency medical condition. Honestly, I prayed for him then. He was a Mormon. He knew that I was raised a Mormon. We had some conversations about that. I'm kind of jealous about one thing. I know Jeff's up there in heaven right now. And he has all the answers. And we don't. Quick story. Harvey, myself, and Scott Nelson were at a conference and Jeff was there. And Jeff had belittled me and some other people. And it was about Harvey's drawing sketches of the Bigfoot that the witnesses had come to me about. And the sketches all turned out to look kind of human. There were no ape-looking, gorilla-looking. And Jeff had told me, he said, "Oh, that's a bunch of crap." He goes, "Those sketches are crap." I said, "Well, you want to sit in on a sketch and see how Harvey does it?" He goes, "Yeah." So at this conference in Hanobi, Oklahoma, there was a couple from Arkansas that were there. And Harvey drew the sketch, and darn if it didn't look human. And Jeff stood up and goes, "Pfft," in front of everybody and walked away. Now both those great men are gone. And I remember going to dinner with Harvey and Gina that night. He said, "You know, Dave, don't be mad about it. You and I know that was exactly what the biped looked like according to those two witnesses, a husband and wife." They said that's exactly what it was. So, man, I miss both those guys so much. Harvey and Jeff. Wow. So anyhow, that's kind of my intro to today's segment. I'm going to talk to you about a case started in Louisiana and ended in Texas. And it's quite a case. It involves a man named Gary Joseph Merkantel, Jr. His friends called him PJ. He was 38 years old. Show you the top pictures first. Per the sheriff, where he went missing January 18th, 6 a.m. when it was snowing in Texas. He's a Marine veteran. PJ was a Marine veteran, served in Afghanistan. And let me detour for a second here. Let me ask you a question. I was asked this just the other day because somebody heard me make this statement a few years ago. What I said was, I think every adult between 18 and 23 should do between 18 months and 2 years of public service. And I don't mean college. Now, Dave, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean military, Peace Corps, police, fire, paramedic. Just time serving the public. Nurse. But it's volunteer time. Or it's at that relatively low scale where there's enough that you can survive on, but you're not benefiting financially from it. And a long time ago, somebody was talking to me about this and said, Dave, think about how much you grew in as an adult between 18 and 23. Yeah, huge. And he said, think about how much our country right now needs people to step up and make America clean, safe, etc. A lot of people don't want to be firemen now, don't want to be policemen, don't want to be paramedics, don't want to join the military, etc. But we need those. And when you talk about Gary, the guy who's missing, I think we owe a debt of gratitude to those people that did public service. Well, Gary had a fiance and a son from Oberlin, Louisiana, and he had gotten a job in Denver, and he was going to drive his Toyota Camry from Oberlin to Denver. Well, on January 18th at about 2:28 a.m., he was caught on CCTV at a gas station in Harold, Texas. That was the picture from the gas station, him walking out at about 2:28 in the morning. Now, about 8 hours later, at 10:46 a.m., he puts in a call to the Armstrong County Sheriffs through their 911 system stating that he's away from his car, he's cold, he's not even sure where he's at, and he's having a difficult time describing to dispatch where he is. He says he'd been out of his car for 4.5 hours. He had a flat. He says, no, nothing happened. I wasn't forced out of my car, nothing like that. I got out and was trying to hike to get some help, but I can't find anybody. And at the time he made the call, it was snowing. It was real cold, blowing snow. And that area had really poor cell coverage. Couldn't ping a phone there. Now, Dave, where is that at? Well, that's a good question. So, this is where he's from, Oberlin, Louisiana. Took this trip right over, and he ended up south of Claude, Texas, right near Amarillo. Now, one of the real peculiar things about this, very peculiar, is why did he turn south at Claude when he should have kept driving right towards Amarillo? And that is really a cornerstone piece to this story. He drove 18 miles south. So, comes up this way, turns south. Should have gone on to Amarillo. Huge mistake. Here's the big highway. Here's a little tiny highway. Then he ends up stopped over here next to the Paulidesw Canyon. Well, what's that, Dave? Well, that's 18 miles south of Claude. It's the second largest canyon system in the USA. It's got real steep canyons. The entire thing is 25 to 40 miles long. Average width is 6 miles up to 40 miles wide. And the nickname for it is the Grand Canyon of Texas. And much of the canyon itself is owned by private parties. The entire distance of it is about 120 miles. Very rural area, nothing really out there. And that was part of the problem. So, at 10:46, this 911 call comes in. And Gary really couldn't explain where he was at. And the dispatchers thought possibly because he was standing in a snowstorm that he was hypothermic. Well, they dispatched some deputies, and they find his car 18 miles south of Claude, Texas. Very rural area. Now, if this had happened in a city, they would have found his car in a couple of minutes. Problem is, with the intermittent cell, that you can't use triangulation very well, and you can't find him or the car. They really were guessing where he was at, and they guessed right. Well, the sheriff's office, state police, and Fish and Game respond to the area of the call. Cell phone stopped working. Interesting thing is that as a safety feature, he said he was carrying a golf club that he took from his car. But he said that he wasn't in any danger. Nobody tried to steal the car or anything. Well, they searched and searched. They couldn't find him. And they call in for their search and rescue team, drones, canines, cell phone, tower technology searches, mapping software, horses, mules, UTVs, four-wheelers, and professional trackers came in. Now, a lot of times, right next to the roadway, there's like a steep drop-off down into the canyon. And they were telling people, hey, don't come in and search those areas. We have private teams in and our own search and rescue team, but those are all privately held property. And they have let us in to search. He's not down there. Now, Gary did time in Afghanistan for the Marines. And his Marine buddies heard that he was missing, and they actually came out and searched. It was them and one of the best search and rescue teams in the world called Texas EcuSearch came in and supplemented what was being done by the sheriff. And that is huge, folks. EcuSearch brings in top searchers, top dogs, drones. They're very comprehensive. I've recommended them to other search parties. The Armstrong County asked for more game wardens, which they got. A company called Heal Corporation came in. Altogether, there was a 21-day search and rescue. They found nothing. A year later, January 2026, searchers came back again, covered new area, covered old area. Cadaver dogs found nothing. Now, I want you to think about something real quick. Think about this thoroughly. He couldn't describe where he was. You're walking down a road from your car. You should know where you turned and what road you're on. And when you're asked to describe the topography, he's a smart man. He should have been able to do that. But he couldn't. Now that's very odd. So 15 to 18 miles behind you is that city you just turned from, Claude. Why not just follow the roadway back the way you came? Because that would for sure take you back to town. Again, he appeared to be quite confused. The other question is, why turn off the main highway and go to a little country road and get that far off track? Really, I have that question. I don't understand. Was he somehow pulled that direction towards Palo Duro Canyon? You know, I bring the X-Files up a lot because a lot of what has happened to those people in the X-Files mimics what happens in missing 411 cases. And you got to remember, the first year of the X-Files came out of true case files from the FBI. No, it's true. FBI agent named John D'Souza. Those were his files. So, take that as you may. All right. Gary's never been found. His golf club hasn't been found. Phone, nothing. Did he walk into a portal? And that's why he can't describe where he's at? I don't know. I think it's very odd. So, we've got some new people here. They've asked a lot of good questions about the research, missing 411 research. I'm going to cover some of that right now. It's not going to be, the rest of this is not going to be missing people, except it's going to lay the groundwork for you to understand how we ended up where we are today. I first started researching missing 411, and I started to go through hundreds of case files. Again, one of the first profile points that came up was dogs refusing to track a scent trail. Happened to too many dogs for it to not have a scent trail there. Another one was distance traveled by children. At the time, I had young kids. I knew how far my kids could walk on the trail until Dad had to pick them up and carry them. And how high would young kids climb if they were left alone? Another question that most parents could probably answer. Parents know what their children can accomplish, and that's why they have to be questioned by search and rescue. If they said, oh, my son or daughter is disabled, they really can't make it very far. Oh, okay, well, then that means something. This is the important point that a lot of people miss when they read my books. When it says, oh yeah, a 2-year-old child covered 12 miles in 2 days. Here's what you need to know. Young kids, when it gets dark, they lay down and go to sleep. And why is that? Most kids are afraid of the dark. And all kids are taught when it gets dark, you go to sleep. And you don't get up until it's light. So, if you're in a dark forest, it may not get light till late. So how did all those kids travel all these miles only during daylight? Oh yeah, good question, Ollie. So miles covered by kids are daytime miles. Remember that. Weather issues related to the disappearance or the search and rescue, that's another profile point. Victims found in or around water. Victims missing shoes or clothes. I had several cases where very young kids were found naked. And the parents said, I don't know what happened here, I don't like it, but my kid can't undress themselves. So how did they get the clothes off? Some of you will say, oh, well, kids will find a way. Maybe. Sometimes clothes are found in such close proximity to where the kids were last seen, hypothermia had no time to set in. That's the other excuse that's thrown at me. Oh, they had hypothermia. Clothes were 100 yards away from where they were last seen. No, that didn't happen. Victims go missing or are found in an area around boulders or granite. One of the largest concentrations of granite in the world is Yosemite National Park, which is the largest cluster of missing people in the world. Now, in your spare time, here's your homework. I want you to, when I'm done here, go look up granite and just Google special qualities of granite. You'll be surprised. Another profile point, victims found in locations previously searched, sometimes a dozen times. And I don't believe that searchers missed them all those times. I don't believe they were there. If the victims are found alive, many of them, in fact the majority, don't have a memory. How they went missing, the track they took, how they got where they're at. And right away when I started to read this time after time after time, I was also a MUFON investigator. So I knew that UFO abductees had their memory wiped as well. Another profile point of separation. You and your friend are walking on a trail, and there's a lake trail to the right and there's a mountain trail to the left. You want to walk the lake trail, the friend wants to hike the mountain trail. They're both the same distance. Hey, you guys split up, and that's when things happen. That point of separation. People going different directions. I've stated before, it's almost like someone's watching and waiting for you guys to separate. Question I get asked a lot is, has there ever been a case where two people vanished together? Oh yeah, it's very rare. And you usually don't find deceased people together because people die at different rates. One person may have more water chemistry to them, another may be younger and have more stamina. People just don't die at the same time. So it's very rare to find two people together. There is a case in New Mexico at a national monument. Two people disappeared and they're found dead later on lying next to each other. Strangest case ever. It's in my books. Canines related to a disappearance. Many people disappear with a dog. Weirdly. Subgroup, Germans. The only physicists missing in the world are Germans. And the 3 German physicists from Germany that are missing went missing in the United States when they lived in Germany. Subgroup, trail runners, marathon runners. Another subgroup. Another subgroup, intellectuals, physicians, professors. Another subgroup, crashes of aircraft, technical failures. Compasses oftentimes don't work. There's crashes during the search for the victims of aircraft. The victim has a disability or illness, diabetic, Alzheimer's, just feels ill all of a sudden. And then I get asked this almost every conference, Dave, how does an elderly dementia or Alzheimer victim vanish and never be found? Well, that's a great question. One that bugs the heck out of me. So then my question comes in. You have all this in the back of your mind, what I just told you. How do you educate the public to the topic? And I started to think about it with our first movie. And I said, most Americans have kids. And then there's a younger sect that don't have kids, but they're probably young enough to remember themselves as kids. So the first movie I made, Missing 411, that's the whole title of it. You can watch it on Tubi, Tubi right now. Centered on children who vanished. And Survivor Man, Les Stroud, was in that movie trying to replicate the travel one of these 2-year-olds made. Unbelievable. How could they get away from your presence that quickly? That was number one. And then how could they travel that distance? Now this is a table that I put in a couple of my books. And this one, in 1931, a 4-year-old, it's in Devil's in the Detail, my book, traveled 45 miles in 5 days. 1938, 4-year-old, also in Devil's in the Detail, traveled 40 miles in 4 days. 1973, a 2-year-old in North America and Beyond, that book, traveled 20 miles. 1936, 2-year-old in Devil's in the Detail, 15 miles in 3 days. 1945, 2-year-old, Western U.S., 15 miles. Now, why do I give you those details? Because in the book, I quote the source. I don't make up things. Oh yeah, it was in like the Denver Post, February 3rd, 1938. The headlines are, 2-year-old travels 30 miles. I deal in facts. And the stories are in my books. You want to double check? Check. And then you have elevation gain. Famous case that I wrote about called, the boy's name was David Scott. July 13th, 1957, in the California Sierras, 2 years old. They found him 3,000 feet higher up in the mountain than where he was last seen. 8/12/1910, Eddie Hamilton from Saskatoon, 2 years old, 1,800 feet higher than where he was lost. 7/13/88, Eric Taylor from Australia, 2 years old, 1,200 feet higher. Then there was another one, David Holtz, Sequoia National Park, 9 years old. He was disabled, found 1,200 feet higher than where he was lost. Now, these tables are in the books. The idea is to put this data in front of people, rational thinking people. Now, where these kids were found, there's no roads. So they couldn't have jumped in a car and traveled with somebody who abducted them. No, that dog doesn't hunt. So that the first movie was to put kids' stories where people could understand, hey, that can't happen. Something else happened here. Then I did a movie called Missing 411, The Hunted, also available on Tubi. Chronicled adults missing in the woods. Oftentimes, relatives were close by. Then the third one, Missing 411, The UFO Connection. Stories in there about elk being abducted by UFOs and witnessed by a large group of people. A hunter in Wyoming abducted, taken aboard a craft, left no tracks, no scent trail, had tuberculosis scars that were healed. And then right where he went missing, there's a cluster of missing German hunters. He was German. And then the latest movie, Missing 411 National Parks, Washington State, on Amazon. Large clusters of missing people at Mount Rainier National Park and Olympic National Park. Hikers, photographers, intellects. Yeah, there was a landscape photographer who had gone into Rainier 20 times, disappeared, never found, equipment never found. A physician recently moved to Seattle, disappeared at Rainier, never found. No tracks, no scent trail. How can all this be accomplished? That's the question. Some people say, well, these people are walking down the trail and the ground opens up and sucks them in, or they fall into a mine. You got to think rationally about this. If that was true, what would the canines do? They would track down the trail right to that point and stop. If there was a hole there or not, dogs only do what dogs can do. That scent trail ends there, they stop there. But that never happens. So this theory that they get sucked into the ground, no. So that is the abbreviated edition for my new friends out there who are joining us on the Missing 411 circuit. You are greatly appreciated. We have one of the best groups of people you can imagine right here, commenting on our videos, participating day to day. Every other day I'll post a video. Look at your screen right there. On the bottom left, there's that little Can-Am Missing logo. You click on that and you'll find all 900 of our videos. And always read the #1 comment on every video. Most of the time it'll be mine. And a lot of times I will put videos under that comment right here, from right here, that are like missing truckers, missing Canadians, that are just clusters of cases that I put together that you may find interesting. But 900 videos should keep you busy here. Thanks. The last thing I always talk about is kindness. Kindness is mega important to me. There's not enough kindness in the world, and it's free to distribute. The next time you're in a store, the post office, smile at the person helping you and tell them how much they are appreciated. It costs you nothing. And you might make their day. Be safe. Be kind. Paulides out.